Welcome to the February 3rd, 2026 St. Mary City Commission regular meeting. I'll make my little public announcement. If you want to speak at the meeting, please you feel free to do so, but come up to the little podium. Let us know if you're a resident of the city, please, and keep your comments clear, concise, and courteous. That's my request. We'll look first at Appropriation Ordinance 1291. There was one change you wanted to mention, Marie.
Yeah, you can, there's a void on there. It was for the wrong amount.
Oh yeah,
so
it's the wrong amount.
Yeah, reissued it.
It's less actually.
Yes.
It's important. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the appropriation ordinance as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve appropriation ordinance number 1291.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Aye, and there are none opposed. So that's good. He looks really good, just like that. Is he on or is he not?
I don't know. Can you hear us? Looks like he's sitting there.
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay.
I can't see, but I can hear you.
The second item on the agenda is the proposed minutes of January 20th meeting. Any concerns about that? Good. Good, Raphael?
That's fine. You can turn off the camera. If you can't get it to spin, you can turn off the camera. It's fine.
Oh, but we like seeing you. You mean our camera? All right. Do we have any other agenda items to add? No? Okay, good. We'll go on with the planned business. First item, resolution number 226, sewer project financing. I think Kevin's here. That's Kevin Town. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor and everybody. So 6 months or so ago, we talked about the sewer project and authorizing both it and bond financing for it, and through ordinance 1353 made that authorization. And I think we talked about at that time, the next step, in addition to bidding the project, proceeding with construction related to finance, and it would be sort of coming back to you as the governing body to say you've authorized a financing, and now you can adopt this resolution that authorizes staff and I as bond counsel to move forward with the sale of the bonds. So that's what this resolution does. A couple of things to point out: the authorization was in excess of $750,000, and the project has been bid for something much less than that, I believe. And so, in conversations, discussions with the city manager, we think that the bond amount, rather than $750,000 plus, would be more like $395,000. One of the things we talked about last summer is sort of the smaller the issue, I think the more likely it is one of the local banks might be interested in purchasing it. If that is the case, it simplifies the process. You don't have a public offering of securities. It's a private placement, a little less expensive. You're not having an offering document prepared. You're likely not paying an underwriting fee to an investment bank that would underwrite the bonds and sell to customers. And so I think this is consistent with that. And what this resolution does is authorize the city manager, with assistance from other city staff, bond counsel, to communicate with local banks, potential purchasers of bonds, with a term sheet that would invite them to respond back to it, sort of, are you interested in these bonds, and at what interest rates. So that's what this does. One of the things I would like to discuss and get some direction on is the information that would be necessary to complete the term sheet, and that is amortization. What length of time would you as a governing body like to amortize the bonds? The city manager and I have talked about probably 10 years, maybe less. One of the things I'll mention is that if it's 10-year financing, I think, particularly if we're dealing with a local bank, we could build in a prepayment provision that's pretty flexible. We probably talked about this last summer, but if it's a public offering, and let's say it's a 10-year issue, the market usually wants some protection from you paying off that investment too quickly. And if people are buying your bonds, they want to treat that as investment. So if it's a 10-year issue in the public markets, that's maybe 5 years before you could exercise unilaterally an option to just pay off those bonds. With a local bank, if the local bank is the purchaser, I think that's much less likely going to be the case, and you may have something that could be prepayable at any time, or maybe just after a year or two. So if 10 years is maybe the longest you're thinking you might want to amortize it, it could be that you are conservative and say, let's do 10 years, but if we have the ability to prepay after, any time or in a year or two, we can exercise that option and just prepay and make our own amortization schedule that might be shorter than that. Having said that, just nothing magical about any of these numbers. Plug in just a 10-year amortization, 5% interest rate, which I don't know if that's accurate at all. I mean, I think if you sold bonds publicly, it might be a little less than that, but I think we talked about, again, it's expensive to go in more expensive to go in the public market, so you pay some deal costs to get that bit of lower interest. But let's say it's 5%. Amortized over 10 years, if you had annual principal payments, and then, semi-annual interest, your total principal and interest per year would be about $51,000, and total interest cost over that 10 years about $116,000. So if you borrowed $395,000, you end up paying $511,000, including interest at 5% over those 10 years. If it was a 7-year, again, annual principal, semi-annual interest, amortization, your total principal interest payments annually would be about $68,000. So that's $17,000 more per year. You reduce your interest cost to $83,000, so you save about $33,000 in interest over time. The other thing I was curious about is, and this would be less likely if it was a public offering, but maybe more possible if a local bank is the purchaser, is have semi-annual principal and interest payments. So typically bonds are going to have semi-annual payments, but if it's a public offering, it's typically annual principal and then one semi-annual payment that's interest and another semi-annual payment that's at the same time as the principal payment, so it's principal and interest. If you have semi-annual principal, that means you're paying principal a little faster. So if you did that over 10 years, that reduces your annual cost by about $1,000 per year, maybe not as much as I expected, and your total interest would be about $110,000, so you would save a little bit. So just wanted to give you a flavor of what that might look like if you're thinking about providing direction of, let's do a 10-year amortization. Typically it's going to be level principal and interest, so we'd have to sort of use some of these numbers to determine what do we think principal each year should be to result in level principal and interest. You're going to have more interest in the early years or more principal is outstanding, accruing that interest, and then that principal goes up over time. So those are the things I wanted to mention, but hopefully, if we leave here tonight with a resolution that's been adopted, maybe direction on the amortization period of time, that would allow the term sheet to be completed, and the resolution would direct the city manager to share that with potential purchasers locally. Schedule, if this is adopted tonight, I think maybe having a sale at your next meeting in February is maybe too fast, but maybe your first meeting in March, and then that would allow kind of a mid-March closing date in terms of when you'd have the funds available to be able to start paying bills. And based on my understanding, that would work from when you'll start having the contractor do work and submit invoices. So probably a lot of information, but happy to stop there and address any questions you may have.
Anything? Francis, Justin?
Go ahead. Thanks, Mayor. Yep, thanks for coming. So, yeah, all sounds good to me. I get it. And I think these are all very realistic. And whether we go 7 or 10 years, at the end of the day, it's a little bit of difference, but not a whole lot. One of the first things you mentioned was about the total amount being small enough to have local banks be interested. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And specifically, what do you mean by small amount? What's that range of dollars?
Oh, I probably can't give you a precise amount, but my experience is, local banks are going to have capital requirements. So if it would, the school district issued $25 million in bonds to build a new building, that's probably too much capital for a local bank to tie up. That isn't to say that something in the millions would frighten a local bank. They may be interested. Sometimes maybe it's on the lower end of the millions, but it may be less about size sometimes and more about amortization length. So the smaller the issue probably is going to mean you can amortize it more quickly. And again, this is just my experience, but banks, particularly if it's going to be fixed rate, like to get repaid more quickly, and they don't, if it's a bond issue that was going to be a 30-year amortization with fixed rates, not a rate adjustment, or a local bank's got to commit to that rate, no chance of it changing over 30 years. That's usually not how they handle that sort of investment. And there may be a banker in the audience, somebody watching that would say they disagree. That's just my experience, that it's usually shorter term. And I used the example of school district. If it was selling bonds, probably would be a public offering, have some investment bank that underwrites, but almost 100% certainty some of those bonds would get sold to the local banks. And again, my experience is those are the shorter maturities. The banks happy to be investors in those bonds, but they don't want to tie up the money for 30 years, particularly at a fixed rate. They, maybe it's 4 or 5 year maturities. They like to get repaid. Market rates are going to go up and down, and so they can go with that, as opposed to, we're locked in for 30 years.
So I'll throw out a case scenario. So if the bank's like a shorter period, and then maybe even a lower dollar amount, assuming by liking it, they're willing to offer a lower interest rate.
I don't know, but I'm more interested in being a purchaser and investor. Probably their rates are the rates. That if they're interested, it's probably going to be a more competitive rate. I have seen situations where banks, and this really isn't what we do, we're not that interested, but we want to do a nice thing for the community, so we'll submit bid, and maybe it's not all that competitive. So yes, I think it's going to be a more competitive rate if the bank doesn't feel like we're just doing this to support the community, as opposed to this is the sort of investment we like. We may purchase this sort of bond from whoever sells us bonds as part of our investment portfolio, sort of shorter end, Kansas bond, sort of thing. So I think it's more likely you'll get something close to a market rate that they would be, you know, whether it was a City of St. Mary's bond or something else in Kansas that they might be interested in purchasing.
Thanks. Might have something a little bit.
Um, anyone else? Questions? So it sounds like there's still some work to be done on really narrowing down, you know, what the offers are. We would approve that, you know, make that choice later, right? The purpose of this resolution is,
Well, you could.
yeah,
If you said, we'd like a 10-year amortization, level debt service, with, you know, a prepayment option at 1 year or at any time, that would give us enough to leave tonight and say, okay, we can start communicating with banks about that.
but I wanted to ask something about that prepayment option. If we had a situation where we could pay it early, does that change that total interest amount, or are we signing up for that? Save money on the interest,
Yes.
presume, by
Just
yeah.
like if you pay off a home loan or car loan early, and it wouldn't be the way I'm envisioning it. If we have that flexibility, it wouldn't be, you know, we built up some funds and we think in 2 years we'll be able to pay off all of it all at once. It could be, you know, we have $25,000 this year that we think we could apply to principal. So you just reduce principal by 25,000 that year. Yeah, and chip away at it. So maybe it doesn't all occur at once, but if you had some prepayments over 3 or 4 years, then you kind of get to the same place.
Did you want to comment, Raphael?
Yeah, just a quick question. What is the investment banker's fee typically? Is it a percentage of how much money we're raising?
Yes, I mean, if it was a public offering, yes, and on a general obligation issue in Kansas, that's usually going to be, and again, this is experience, you know, there are exceptions to all this, probably 1% or more. So on something like this, it might be $4,000, $5,000 or more.
And again, knowing that this is just speaking in generalities, how much more of a favorable rate do you think we would get going public as opposed to going to a bank? Is it like 1% or is it less than that?
Oh, it is difficult to say without going to the banks. Just as an example, approved tonight, the city of Wamego sold a temporary note, 2 years, so a little shorter, to the local bank, Caw Valley State Bank, at 4.3%, and taxable. It wasn't tax exempt for federal income tax purposes, so if it's tax exempt, that's typically going to be a lower rate. So I thought that was a pretty good rate. I think if this went to the public markets, you could expect something average coupon in the high 3s or low 4s, and I don't know. We'll have to see from the local banks. I do know that you have in this area because we worked on deals with them before. The Bank of the Flint Hills, Caw Valley, some banks that are interested in this sort of thing, and makes me more confident you're going to get something closer to market. But it really is just hard to say. I would.
Okay, I appreciate
Yeah, I mean, it may be 1% or more. It just depends on the appetite of the local banks. If we advertised or sent term sheets to local banks, and they came back with responses that were, 6-7%, I think we'd get together and say, no, we don't want to do that. Let's go to Plan B, which might be some sort of public sale. And you asked about, investment banking, underwriting, compensation. We talk about the public sale would also require, it's called an official statement, but it's essentially the prospectus. And so there's a little bit of work and expense in that. And so in addition to maybe the underwriting fee, what you're saving is probably $3,000 to $5,000 of just preparation of that document. So if that helps at all, I mean,
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Just trying to do the math.
yeah,
If we have 0.5% more favorable than the bank, or less favorable than the bank, that's a $1,500 expense per year, right? And if that, it still gets us in a better place if we're public, then just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
yeah.
Or at least had insight into that. Thank you.
No, good questions, and my takeaway from that is to be able to tell you this isn't the final expression of what you're going to do. You still have to see a proposal that is the best proposal, and if the best proposal is unacceptable, that's when we can talk about, maybe something else.
Did you want to follow up? Good, Raphael?
Yes, thank you.
So another question is the amount. The borrow, it's about a $400,000 project. Then we have some more engineering on top of that.
We paid for preliminary, final, and we'll be paying for construction observation. That's like $58,000. That is. We're not financing any of that.
So about 50,000 ish, right around there. So about 450,000 total.
Or so, yes.
In total project.
Yeah, not financed.
Okay.
Yeah, and so can you go to the bank and say, all right, one option is 400,000 for 10 years, another option 400,000 for 7 years, another option you're looking at a carryover in the sewer, it's stretching a little bit thin, but 300,000 for 5 years, 300,000 for 7 years. Can you get all of those options, or do they take a look at all those? Because if we get back and there's an advantage financially, big time, to go to a shorter note and a lower amount, we would have to double check the budget, make sure we're not putting the fund at risk.
Yeah, I don't know that the look, and I'm now getting a better idea about your earlier question. I don't know that between 300,000 and 450 or something that's going to make a bank more or less interested. But to your point, maybe if you said, well, okay, we're comfortable with the 395 or 400,000 just to cover the construction costs, but we'd like to get bids on a 10-year amortization, a 7-year amortization, and a 5-year amortization on that amount, 395, 400. That may make some sense. And you could have a bank that says, we're not interested in 10 years, but we'd be interested in 7 or 5 or something like that. So that would definitely be possible. And again, the resolution is pretty general, but I think you all could adopt it tonight and then provide direction. But what we'd like to hear from the banks is, again, a $395,000 issue, 10-year, 7-year, 5-year, or whatever it may be. Okay.
Were you asking how much it was because you wanted to add it to the bond to reimburse the fund for the expense, or what was your point?
No, just taking a look at our carryover, knowing what the project costs, but there's going to be additional engineering just so I can get the big picture.
Yeah, that's all that's left is the observation, the construction observation, and you've already paid some of it, by the way.
Yeah. So if you, I guess my request from here is if we go for 395, you get those 10, 7, 5 year. Can we also do one at 300 at 10, 7, 5?
Yeah.
And take a look at both of those, and then we'll have two choices on, the total amount, and then also choices as far as the length of time.
What I would suggest is maybe it's not 6 choices. It's still 3, and the choices are 10, 7, and 5. But we tell the banks the principal amount is going to be a range between 300 and 400, and it will result in level principal and interest, whatever interest rates you bid. And so then they can decide, okay, no difference to us between 300 and 400. City, you can make your determination about that, but here's what our rates would be over those periods of time.
Okay. Thanks.
And I'm looking at the wording. It just says the top number is high. That's because we approved that for the total authorization. correct?
Yeah, that's just reciting what the ordinance.
And then, it says in the approximate amount, so that wording is sufficient even given this follow-on discussion.
Yep.
So they would need to adopt this resolution
Yeah.
tonight. That's what you're saying. 0226.
Any other questions? Okay, so I would accept. Okay,
Sorry,
go ahead.
do we have to expressly ask as well to make it pre-payable as part of the bid that goes out?
Yeah, and you could say prepayable at any time. I don't think that would impact the bids, but if you don't think there's any chance that you would prepay, 300, 400,000 within the first year or two, then I would suggest maybe giving them a little protection and say, okay, we're not going to pay this off in the first 2 years, but after 2 years, then it's prepayable at our option.
I like that. We probably wouldn't be doing this if we could pay it off in the first.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so good. Given that, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution. I'm sorry, what is it? 0126. 0226, authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation bonds series 2026, the city of St. Mary's, Kansas.
I move to adopt resolution 0226 as stated.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Good. And there are none opposed. So that is adopted.
Do you have to have? Are there signatures for the mayor to sign? And do you need them signed right now before you leave? Okay. Thank you.
All right.
And then if the consensus is maybe let's see what banks would do for us at kind of the 10.75 and that range of 300 to 400, city manager and I can communicate. We might be able to get a response before your next meeting in February. I was just thinking we may not be able to get that response and determine this is acceptable, not acceptable, and get it into bond ordinance and resolution that quickly. So maybe we shoot for that, and then.
So the contractor, the engineer said the soonest they would start would be April, and they can't make any pay requests for at least 30 days. So the first pay request would be May 1st, approximately, as if the weather cooperated. So that's what we're looking for time frame.
Okay, so that's helpful. We'll have some. Maybe we get responses, and not necessarily ask the governing body to consider an ordinance or a resolution. Just review the responses, and then the takeaway from that can be drafting the ordinance and resolution, whatever the best bid is. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
Thank you again. The next item on the agenda, AT&T use of public right-of-way. Anyone here to speak on that, or do you have anything for us?
Let's see here. I can give you an update on it. They, Kegley, I think his last name is, had approached the city about running they're running it to Wichita, but they're going through Fort Riley or the bases and that sort of stuff. They want to come in on 24 on the south side, and at the college entrance go north, and then go up 2nd Street to Mission, over to 8th, and then up 8th to Oregon Trail Road, and then they'll go out to the county and continue on. They're not offering service. It's not a franchise agreement. It's not a conditional use permit. Apparently it's just an agreement with the governing body that lets them use the right-of-way. The city attorney reviewed it and says that if they ever have to move it, or we ever need them to move it, they have to move it, that sort of stuff. If you don't feel you've had enough information on it, I would say, you can table it and see if we get the engineer here.
Yeah, when did they want to start this? It's not. I don't remember seeing that.
I don't know what it is.
What's that?
So I can't give you any more information on that. If you have questions, I'll take them, and maybe Mr. Kegley, if that's his name, Ethan, can show up.
Well, just one little detail I noticed under the materials and methods. So all request for form work must be approved by the city engineer. Yeah, why not?
Well,
Is that Bob just?
we don't have an official engineer. We contract out with engineers if we need
So
to.
is that would we have to do that? That's my concern. Are we gonna have to, is that a cost for us to have an official look by an engineer before we?
There would be a cost, yes.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure we want to pay for this, for giving them access to our right of way. That just was a question that popped up. If it really requires an engineering work, I don't really want to pay for that.
Yeah, I think that's something that's what they consider boilerplate. It would be in all these agreements.
But
I don't disagree that if you want to have someone review it.
Did you?
Kind of phone a friend. Can I have somebody in the audience to kind of give some 2 cents on it?
Sure.
So,
We'd love people to
Leo,
come
are
on.
you willing to kind of help answer a few questions?
He doesn't. You're not under any obligation.
So AT&T wants to run some lines through our city, right? From Wichita or Topeka or whatever. What's normal on this? I know there's sometimes franchise agreements, but that's generally when the provider serves the city. They're not going to serve the city. Have you seen similar things to this?
Only in the sense of eminent domain where they can do it anyway. I don't think they could do that in city street or not.
But do they ever? Is it normal for a city to charge them anything for use of right of way, or is this just normally
I think you can do whatever you want. My opinion, you could charge them if you wanted to.
There are the railroad right away paying right now, and that's part of the issues. And it's too much. I will tell you that. So for Rossville, they're going down 24, and that's KDOT. And I think they can tear up our streets and go down 24 if that's what you want to have them do. And I'm not sure what say we have in that matter, but I did ask the city attorney if we could charge him. He said, "Yeah, we can put a dollar amount in there." What did I suggest? So that's where we're looking at.
Well, we have a couple bids for that Second Street sidewalk. Seems like a pretty good amount. How much are we taking that bond?
That would be my question. There's it's understandable. Right? It's city property, city right of way. We have to maintain it. We have to call the locates. We got AT&T now in our streets. They're using city property, and it is somewhat normal in certain situations to have a fee for that. Not aware of the details of such arrangements, but I think before just giving them access and giving them everything for no charge, I think it's prudent to kind of slow down a little bit and make sure we're.
Could you research that? See if there are other agreements with scenarios like this with AT&T or other companies and what they charge. I'd be interested to know. Do you want to finish? I'm sorry.
I think I have a few contacts that I could probably do some research on.
Yeah, that would be great if we could get. But we certainly don't want to pay extra. We have to have an engineering assessment in order for them to use the right of way. And if it's reasonable and normal to charge, I think we should consider that. Good.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Raphael?
No, I mean, I think we'll charge it whatever it costs for the engineer, right?
Certainly that, yeah.
Right, so you want that, yeah.
Good.
That helps.
Next item on the agenda. No, wait, I said this wrong last time. It's either Echo Devo or Eco Devo. I'm not sure what that's about, but